So you explain this to a guy and like, oh yeah, well, dude, I'm not stupid. Of course, if the check engine light, that's a symptom of the problem. We have to run diagnostics and figure out what the problem is in the engine. It's like
Mhm.
it's exactly the same with the body.
Welcome to the Skilled Dad podcast. This is the podcast for dads of all seasons to learn the things that they can do and engage so that they can go and equip the next generation for success. Here we sit down with everyday dads just like you to learn from their story, get inspired, and then start getting after it. So we invite you to join in, see what you can take away from this story, and apply to your life on your journey to becoming the Skilled Dad. Hey guys, and welcome to the Skilled Dad podcast. My name's Zach Reeser. I'm your host, and I'm glad you're here. If this is your first time joining us, I want to say welcome. And if you keep coming back, welcome back to the conversation. You know how this goes. We're going to have some fun. Today, we're talking across time zones, we're talking across oceans, and we're going to have a blast with my guest, Christian Yordanov, who's joining me from Portugal. And like I said, different time zones. He's having his lunch. I just hopefully, had a little bit of coffee and we're just meeting where we are, which is great. So Christian, thanks for joining me on the Skilled Dad podcast.
Thank you, Zach. Pleasure to be on, bro.
I'm excited to have you. We've gone back and forth with, the scheduling thing is real, even within similar time zones. Life goes
Yeah.
on. Baseball schedules come out and you're like, oh, we've got a game during that recording. We're gonna have to switch. So Christian was kind enough to swap some times with me. But you know, Christian's a busy guy. It seems like you have certifications in many, many things. You've got a young daughter at home. We just talked about the good old sleep factor, which I would love to get into. But you're also an author, and you're the author of How to Actually Live Longer, Volume 1. And so I started pressing him on when's Volume 2 coming out, but we'll get to that. So and you also have, some podcasting in your history. You have a children's health podcast that you've done, right? Um, and so, when we connected, I took a look and I'm a language geek. I don't for some of those that don't know this, I love languages, and the reason I love languages is I started young and early, and I found how you can connect with other people. So, you know, someone come from Portugal, I was like, I lived in Spain. Portugal's cool.
Nice.
Let's talk. And we started talking, and here we are, and I'm excited for this. So again, let's do this, man. Let's have some fun, and I'll just hand it over to you a little bit, and you can kind of take us into where you want to start with your story, and we'll just take it from there. Sound good?
Sure, bro. Sure.
Let's do
Um,
it.
we should also have you on the Children's Health podcast, my show. We should book that before we split today. Yeah,
We can do
so
that.
yeah, for sure. We a pleasure. So a little bit about me. I sometimes like to tell the not so shimmering shiny story. So in my basically my late teens and basically all through my 20s, I lived a fairly rock and roll lifestyle. So kind of squandered them. A lot of alcohol, smoking, and other stuff, terrible food, right? So all the
Mhm.
bad habits you can think of, gambling, poker, staying up at night, and not sleeping. I even worked the night shift for two straight years,
Mhm.
and I also worked about 9 or 10 months in a company testing set-top boxes for TVs, and we were getting bathed with Wi-Fi signals for like the 9, 10 months I was there.
Oh,
And
nice. Just
actually,
EMF
yeah,
bath, like,
yeah, a
all
nice
over.
EMF
Yeah.
EMF bath, and actually, in hindsight, there was 15 other guys working in like a separate room, and I think at least I know of 5 or 6 of them that got cancer.
Oof.
Yeah, so coincidence, I'm sure. But anyway, so in my early 30s, or just about as I was about to turn 30, I met the woman that would become my wife.
Mhm.
And you meet the person you kind of think you're gonna settle down with, that made me rethink and revisit a lot of things I was doing and a lot of stupid things I was doing. So
Mm.
that got me on the rebuilding my own sort of health and healthy habits,
Mhm.
hopefully reversing a bunch of the bad stuff I had done. And during that process, during that time, I kind of woke up to the what we're basically witnessing at the moment is the disease stats going up, uh,
Mm.
precipitously rising, the pharmaceutical companies' profits rising to eye-watering levels. And
Mm.
I saw that there's a big problem of chronic health issues and stuff,
Mhm.
and a massive problem that this sector of the population, this ever-growing sector of the population, is not only underserved, they're being made worse by the quote unquote conventional care.
Right.
If you want to call it care at all, right? So
Mhm.
at that point I saw my grandmother's decline before her death and my mother's own sort of health uh problems that again her doctor did nothing to help her for like more than 10 years, 13 years or so.
Mm.
So I set out to I was going I told myself I'm going to be a part of the solution.
Mhm.
And as I delve deeper and deeper into the health side of things, all the cool biohacking stuff, genetics and nutrients and all that good stuff,
Mhm.
a child in my family was suspected of being on the autism spectrum.
Mhm.
And when I was made aware of this, I quickly started digging into the research. And over the next year and a half after that, I basically dug into the research. A while after that, I decided I'll write a book on it. And that culminated in 2020, me writing my first book or publishing my first book on autism, which is all about teaching parents what are the most common health challenges that autistic children suffer from. And there's a
Mm.
myriad of them, right?
Mm.
From uh, toxicity and gut dysfunction, immune system dysregulation, food allergies, food intolerances, and sensitivities, just sleep issues. There's a ton of them, right? And a lot of them are actually associated or correlated with the severity of the autism.
Mhm.
So
Mm.
in the first half of the book, I teach parents about that stuff. And then in the second half of the book, I tell them all about the most important things they need to do to identify and address their child's specific health challenges. That includes state-of-the-art lab tests that we can leverage nowadays.
Mhm.
So stool testing, urine testing, all stuff you can do at home, hair testing and stuff like that, blood spot testing for food sensitivities and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then obviously the biggest factors are diet, improvements to the diet, supplementation, sleep hygiene, light hygiene, all that good stuff. So that's kind of
Mm.
what got me into in the interest in the children's health.
Mhm.
And at the time, we didn't have a child, but since then I've had a kid. So now in hindsight, I've learned a lot of the things. So I feel like in my work with clients with autistic kids and kids with just gut dysfunction and constipation, I'm much better able to advise them on how they can help their child because I've been through the challenges of at
Mhm.
least through the first 2.5 years. So that's kind of a little bit about me. And then my second book I just published a couple of months ago. It's all about longevity. That's something I wanted to do the whole time, but I felt like the autism stuff was so those folks were so badly underserved.
Mm.
Again, they go to the doctor and the doctor just tells them, "Oh, it's for life. It's genetic. Nothing you can do about it." And then the kids are like hitting themselves or being aggressive or not eating, not sleeping, and a bunch of other stuff. And then they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, "Hey, well, then, what are you gonna do? It has autism. Your child has autism. That's
Mm.
why it's happening." And these things have underlying metabolic imbalances or challenges contributing to them. It's not because of a label that some person in a lab coat or whatever decided
Right.
to devise and pin on you.
Mhm. Yeah, so you had a family member, you said, or a friend that had a
Family
child
member, yeah.
on the
Yeah.
spectrum? Yeah,
Yeah.
and, set you on that path, and then you said you when you had your own kiddo, it changes the game about how we can empathize and understand it in a different way
Oh, yeah.
completely, but it sounds
Oh,
like you were able to through your research and what you've done and being able to help others, that you were really kinda setting yourself up for success, at least ahead of the game.
Yeah.
right? Once you had that, once you actually had the kid at home, which is big, and that'll help you empathize with your clients, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so it's interesting. So not just the autism spectrum side of things that you had someone that was impacted by it. You saw the deficiencies in care. It sounds like,
Mhm.
but you have been living rock style lifestyle, and
Yeah.
then met your lady. Sounds like she kind of helped rein you in a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. And then you went the other way with like the healthy lifestyle, which is
Yeah.
quite the switch.
Yeah.
So how long so you've been doing that now for about 8 years, is that right? Or
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Roundabout. Well, see, when I turned 30, I was, well, so in 2016, I was about to turn 30,
Mhm,
and January, I think it was January 10th or the 11th, I went into the closest Thai boxing gym nearby,
mhm.
which was like a 10-minute walk away from where I was living. And I went in there and I told the coach, I met the coach, just kind of wrapping our hands prior to the session and whatever. I told him I want to do a fight this year. He looked at me weird, and yeah, that th- that's the level of craziness. I just decided I'll go vegan that year, right, for whatever reason,
Hmm.
and I'm gonna do a Thai boxing fight, my first ever Thai boxing fight, um, on a plant-based diet, just to show it can be done. I mean, just like really very harebrained ideas and sort of stuff. But yeah, that then I met her around about that time, as had
Mhm.
started. In a few months later, we started dating, and I did follow through on the fight. I think I did it in November or December that year. I can't remember now.
Okay, I was gonna
But
ask you. Yeah,
yeah, I
how'd you
did. I
do?
did. I lost. I lost on points though. He didn't stop
Alright.
me,
No
and
KO?
I could have knocked him out a few times, but I was wrecked after the first minute, bro. Because we actually went with my wife. Our first trip away
Yeah,
was to Amsterdam, bro,
okay.
which was like 6 weeks before the fight. And it was
Oh,
generally I was, smart, not too stupid, but, it takes away from training, and then you came back, got a bit sick.
yeah.
So the guys in the gym "Oh, you're gonna regret that trip, bro. You're gonna regret that trip." And I did.
And I did after the first minute. I was like,
Yeah,
"I'm ready."
yeah.
Yeah, alright. Um, well, so in that, along the kind of autism spectrum scale that because I mean, you're more closely tied to it than I at this point, but the prevalency is gotten to be 1 in 5, roughly.
Wow.
Is that that's what I recently had heard. Now I need to, like, fact check myself on that. And some because there was an episode that I did early on with a good friend of mine, and he shared some of his story. So if anyone listening has a child on the autism spectrum, I'd recommend go and listen to Josh Heard's story. It's called the title is "Breaking into His World," but you know, it was really impactful for me, and just
Mhm.
hearing kind of the soldier dad that Josh is, and how loving he is, and the different things that he'd have to do than what I have to do. Um, and but it has become more prevalent. So what I like about your book is kind of diving into some of the things that people can understand more of, and then make a choice to take control because it's all stuff like basically internally that we can do with our own body to help fortify who we are to then offset maybe or help, I guess is the word that I would use for someone that has that going on. Does that sound right?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm kind of at this point in the game. I'm sick to death of tiptoeing around terms. You kind of have to.
Yeah.
Even the term severity is really frowned upon. But I'm just
Mm,
stating what researchers. So in research, that's how they have to they have to quantify things a little bit. So they use checklists and various sort of tools that can be used to diagnose autism. And I mean, now it's a little bit changed with the latest DSM criteria with the
mhm,
levels. But at the end of the day, um, a bunch of stuff has been correlated with the severity of autism. And we also have some research where nutritional dietary interventions correlate with massive improvements in cognitive function, a lot of different factors, self-injurious behavior, sleep, growth, development. So it is beyond any doubt in my mind that various hidden metabolic issues, let's call them, are
Mhm.
contributing to the autism.
Mhm.
In some people, there's definitely families where there is more of a genetic predisposition.
Mhm.
There is some cases of autism where it develops in utero, so you cannot expect to fully I don't want to use words like reverse and stuff like that, but
Sure.
you will never be able to. So certain developments that occur while the child is in the mother, there's nothing you can do about them after the fact, right? So for example, just to give a more clear example, if the mother has, let's say, an autoimmune condition, maybe diabetes type 1 or Hashimoto's thyroiditis,
Mhm.
so women with immune system dysregulation or autoimmune conditions, they have there's a higher incidence of autism with those women.
Mm.
So that that immune system milieu, balance of cytokines and immune system messengers and so on.
Mm.
That's kind of the child is born with that, and then thereafter there's only certain things that can be done to that to sort of nudge that immune system in a more balanced way and so on and so forth.
Got
But
it.
for example, a lot of children, like I actually have a client, his wife is a doctor, like a general practitioner, and
Mhm.
they are working with me, and their child received antibiotics at birth. And
Mhm.
some children are getting them not at birth, but at some point in that first 3, 6, 12 months. And what that does is that will have a direct impact on the microbiota, so the community of microbes in the gut. And what
Mhm.
can happen often with antibiotics is they will kill a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
but the action is directly on bacteria. So if there's well, there is always yeast and candida and so on. Those then have more room to grow, quote unquote,
Mhm.
if you can imagine the picture.
Mhm.
So the weeds overgrow in that ecology, and then that shifts the immune system balance. So that's why
Mm.
if a person's gut is disrupted, especially if this occurs for multiple months or years, their immune system becomes dysregulated. And when both of these are dysregulated or disrupted,
Mhm.
then a lot of stuff can happen. So for example, food you eat might be marked as bad, has to be destroyed. So antibodies will be created because the food might be getting malab. So first of all, there might be intestinal permeability, which is leaky gut. So the gaps
Mm.
between the intestinal cells increase. So bits of undigested food can come in. So that can happen. Other things, the inflammation caused can actually damage the gut cells, so they are not able to secrete enzymes to break the food down, or they're not able to absorb the food. So that can cause food malabsorption, which
Mhm.
can cause nutritional deficiencies, which can exacerbate the problem even worse, even further. In the meantime, this child, because they have so much vital force, because you're still a developing organism,
Right.
it will push through, it will make concessions, so it will triage nutrients. Okay, if something is deficient, it will go to the most important vital functions. But the most important vital functions are the heart, basic survival, breathing, lungs, stuff
Mhm.
like that. So, not enough energy and nutrients will be around for the growth and development, or it will be insufficient. And that is how I believe is one of the sort of pictures you can draw to a person. So that is why some children have developmental difficulties, is because of all of these, a confluence of all of these factors contributing to the issue. So naturally, if you take this child, do a stool test, maybe do a couple of other tests, figure out where the most high priority imbalances to address
Yeah.
immediately. And then we're talking probiotics, some maybe herbs to get the nasties that have overgrown knocked down,
Mm,
some nutrients, better quality food, removing certain things, so grains and seeds and seed oils, very, very important. And these things over time, you're shifting the balance from a lot of metabolic chaos that the child is still doing a good job at managing, it's just not getting enough of the other stuff it needs.
mhm,
We're shifting the balance towards more and more balance, right? So over time, as the gut function improves, nutrient absorption improves, the immune system can get a bit of a rest, so less inflammation is going on, and so on and so on and so on. So this is really powerful stuff if that's already and believe it can be done. Because if you don't believe you're doing anything, if you think autism is just something that was genetic and
mhm,
there's nothing you can do about it, like many parents have been misled to believe, then they won't follow through. They won't only do the easy things. They won't do all the kind of harder lifestyle changes, dietary changes. And
mhm,
unfortunately, they'll get lackluster results. And then they will kind of say, well, there you go. It's all a scam. These guys are all quacks and scam artists just trying to profit off of our misery. And then on the
mm,
other hand, I have spoken with one lady. She's in California. Apparently, her kid was the youngest ever to be diagnosed. I think he was 6 months, and he's probably at this point he's probably like 22 or something. And she said that not I'm not saying this, but she said that she completely reversed his autism.
mm,
He was completely neurotypical, but if he lapsed off the several supplements that were keeping him stable with all the genetic stuff that they'd done, he will start regressing, she said. So
mm,
in some cases, you can have permanent results. In some cases, the, there are certain things that will need to be kept in so the imbalances don't start shifting in the wrong
mhm.
direction. Sorry,
S
that was a bit long-winded.
No, it's more like mitigating the balance. That's interesting. Well, so, I mean, if anyone's in that boat, um, I don't you know, they might be looking into areas to research themselves, right? I think a lot of us as parents, when we have kids and something
Mm,
goes on, it's like, "Hey, I wanna dive into that so I can understand what I can do."
yeah,
I kinda wanna flip the topic a little bit. So
sure.
staying on the topic of gut health and because we talked about leaky gut and we talked about some of the metabolic things that we can do is the importance, and I think it almost flows a little bit to your other book that's coming out, right? Or that
Mm,
has come out. But I just had a conversation on the last recording that is not out yet at the time of this recording, but about just the importance of actually, no, I think this one did come out. Um, when our kids get older, I know you've got a little girl.
mhm,
Um, she might want to wrestle with you too, but like when the kids get older, using the idea of your kids want to wrestle with you. My boys, they want to wrestle, right? It's like, hey, let's go. And then when we get older, they want to play sports. We want to do hiking or whatever it is we're into. I wanna be in a place where I'm still in good fitness level, in a good zone to be able to, A, keep up, and B, continue to take them as long as I can just, for father bragging purposes. And so with the gut health piece, I think, um, at least in a lot of the circles that I've been in, and that's really all I can speak to. My wife is really interested in kind of the health area. I can't say I've walked into many conversations with my guy friends or guys that I don't even really know and say, "Oh yeah, you guys you guys talking about gut health? I do it. Let's do it." Like, it's not a common topic that I hear.
yeah,
However, even the marketing, like we talk about probiotics and prebiotics and like all these things are now kind of trendy, with the you at least see them on food sources, but the target market clearly is women on those.
yeah,
So this being a dad podcast, if we're looking at ways to to fortify our health so that when kids bring stuff home, we don't necessarily get hit with it right away, and also how we can uh, maintain and perhaps elevate where we are now from a health perspective because we're not getting any younger, guys. We might still look really good, but we're not getting any younger. So I'd love to kind of get your perspective on that topic and with the gut health, kind of even some of the basics for those that don't know, and
Yeah,
why, what we can maybe some takeaways that we can take and kind of take that on our journey as dads in our own gut health.
yeah, yeah. It's probably not your audience doesn't fall in this category, but actually a lot of guys I know this. We don't do anything until like shit has become catastrophic, like
Until you have to,
you
right?
had a heart attack and you're on a stretcher and your doctor tell you need to lower your cholesterol. You're like, okay, I'm gonna, lower my cholesterol. Do it the fastest way. Give me a medication. And the thing is that it's the whole cholesterol thing is a scam just designed to sell us, chemicals. But it is true even like with my car. Here's the paradox is a lot of guys take better care of their car than themselves. I'm like one in probably a million where I take better care of myself and I couldn't give a crap about my car. And actually that's why I have the car in the shop today. They have to change the alternator because of
Mm.
a thing that they told me 2 years ago that needs to be fixed. I'm like, oh, you're just trying to gouge me, guys. This is fine. This is fine. If it happens, God, I'll figure it out. So yeah, now I'm, you know, paying. But the the gut thing. So in the book, I actually have the last chapter. It's a short chapter. It's called "Give Your Gut Some Love," and very very basically. So we have in the gut we have a bunch of different types of bacteria and other organisms, right?
And when we talk
So
about gut, we're talking about like the internal gut, not necessarily like people say, "Oh, you got a big gut on you," like the big
yeah, yeah,
dad
yeah.
bod gut. We're not talking about that one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, so actually, so when you say gut or when you say gastrointestinal tract, that actually includes obviously your mouth, the food pipe, the esophagus and the small intestine. So the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, the rectum, the anus, all that stuff. But
Mhm,
also the the liver and the gallbladder are big players because they help with digestion, absorption, assimilation of nutrients. But when we say gut, generally what it should mean is the colon or the large intestine, which is
mhm,
the shorter of the two tubes, the main tubes, and that's where the massive majority of the microbes and things live. Technically or generally, the small intestine should have very little actual fungus and bacteria. And people that have an overgrowth in the small intestine of one or the other, this kind of an issue that's more in the zeitgeist over the last 10, 15 years is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth,
mm,
SIBO or CFO, small intestinal fungal overgrowth. Excuse me.
mhm,
And the reason those are bad is because a lot of the nutrients we eat, like the carbs and the fats and the protein, they're getting absorbed in the small intestine, a lot of them. And if you have a bunch of bacteria and yeast, they can ferment the sugar, they can ferment the amino acids, and they release gas as part of this process. So then you can get like belching, burping, reflux, gas, pain, distension. So you want to keep the small intestine clear of these basically all of these organisms. And the one way to do that is to produce sufficient acid in the stomach, right?
mhm,
So this these proton pump inhibitors, these drugs, these anti-acid drugs, these are actually um counterproductive. If you have acid, there's probably some other issue going on. Just treating the symptom, which is what we've been taught is
mhm.
what we should do. Have a headache, have an Advil. Well, that headache could be because you have a freaking tumor in your head, right?
Right,
Worst case scenario. So
right.
you masking the problem is not gonna help. Me putting a bit of black tape on my check engine light for the last 2 years did not actually solve my problem. It removed the me seeing the symptom of the problem, but the problem was in the engine. And if you explain this analogy to a guy, you're like, okay, I get it. So you explain this to a guy, and like, oh yeah, well, dude, I'm not stupid. Of course, if the check engine light, that's a symptom of the problem. We have to run diagnostics and figure out the problem is in the engine. It's like,
Mhm.
it's exactly the same with the body. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. I just take a painkiller, everything's dandy. No. So guys get it. Unfortunately, a lot of us get it way too late, right?
Mm.
And I'm not judging. Like I said, I've been down this journey. I just want to do my part as many people as we can influence in a positive manner, through your
Yeah.
platform and others is why I'm here. So yeah, so the here's the thing, right? So when you we all have all of these bacteria in the large intestine mostly.
Mhm.
Some of them, and we don't need to really grasp all the technicalities here, but some of them, there's a whole sort of group of them called gram-negative bacteria. And all you really all you really need to know about these bacteria is that their cell walls, they have bacterial cell walls, they're one-celled organisms. The
Mhm.
cell wall has these little things called endotoxin, also known as lipopolysaccharide or LPS. And when the bacteria dies, the bacterial cell wall bursts and millions of these tiny endotoxin fragments are spilled into the gut, into the
Mm.
colon. And why is that not good? Is because they're directly toxic to our cells. So they can damage our intestinal lining. They can cause leaky gut or intestinal permeability. And then if they get into the circulation,
Mhm.
then they cause inflammation. And these are have been found in atherosclerotic plaques. They're high in people with Alzheimer's. They are also high in people with depression and people that get injected with this endotoxin as an experiment, as like they have done experiments like this called experimental endotoxemia. They when they get injected with the endotoxin, and we're talking about like a nanogram per
Right.
kilogram of body weight, so tiny, tiny amounts, then they experience depression-like symptoms, lethargy, sickness, illness,
Mhm.
fever, joint pain. So the point is that we all have these bacteria. They're living in our gut mainly, but also they're on our skin, in our gums, right? So people with periodontitis, they actually might have 3 times the level of a person that doesn't have periodontitis, so gum disease and stuff like that. So these are inflammatory things.
Mhm.
And here is what I recommend in my book, How to Actually Live Longer, Volume 1. What I do with my clients is periodically, once or twice a year, do a little herbal protocol to cull the numbers of these bacteria. So I call it mow the lawn or cut the grass, right? So
Mhm.
think of them like weeds on your lawn, and once or twice a year, you are just mowing the whole lawn, cutting everything down, including the weeds, so then everything can sort of
That's
flourish,
a good
not
analogy.
overgrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the reason for that is when you are eating fibers and various starches, like we're told by the mainstream, oh, you gotta eat more fiber. Almost every clinician, even the some of the more awake ones, when you ask them, what's the secret to good health? They'll tell you, drink lots of water, exercise, make sure you get lots of fruits and vegetables, and eat a lot of fiber and stuff. I mean, some of the stuff is absolute nonsense, but the 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 thing is these gram-negative bacteria, they can ferment that fiber. So if you have an overgrowth of these guys and you're chomping on the fiber because your doctor told you to or whatever, you're going to be indiscriminately feeding all of the bacteria that can ferment the fiber, including these guys. So you're going to be
Mm.
giving them food. So I
Mm.
personally don't necessarily recommend a lot of fiber. I mean, going out of your way to add more fiber. But
Mhm.
the protocol is basically once or twice a year you can get a nice probiotic. Something there's a couple of cheaper ones. I in the appendix of the book it's online. It has
Okay.
like the products I use, but you use a probiotic like it's called Bacillus coagulans. It's a spore forming soil-based probiotic. So you can get that for $20 and do that for a month. And
Mhm.
then you can layer in some antibacterial herbs. So there's a product called Biocidin, which is really good, great
Mhm.
for kids, for smaller kids, great when you're feeling a bit sick. And it's good to do once or twice a year, a bottle or two of that, just to kind of kill a bunch of the less beneficial microflora. So a bit of a probiotic, maybe for a month, maybe for 2 months, and then a couple of bottles of this biocide, and it works really a treat. But you can also use oregano oil, olive leaf extract, garlic, just freshly peeled and crushed garlic
Mhm.
for a week, once or twice a day, with a probiotic as well. That
Mhm.
can also be a nice cleanse. And what this actually, garlic has also anti-parasitic properties. But what you're doing is you culling a lot of the overgrowths, and these overgrowths, they can occur if your diet is suboptimal, which many people's are, if your gut function is suboptimal, if your gut ecology is suboptimal, if
Mhm.
there's, chemicals coming in damaging the gut, a damaged gut with all that inflammatory stuff, the immune system stuff going on, that can be conducive to proliferation of more of these harmful species, right? So every once in a while, it's like giving the house a spring cleaning or the gut
Mhm.
a spring cleaning. So I really recommend most guys, this wouldn't even take you, you could actually do it the whole family. This is how I do it. We do it in springtime and autumn time. I give it's a dropper bottle, so I take the dropper bottle out, give a few drops to my kid,
Mhm.
squirt it in my wife's mouth, squirt it in my own mouth, and if I'm feeling extra generous, I might give the dog a little bit. So this not eating too much fiber, especially the soluble fiber, doing this sort of herbal probiotic cleanse once or twice a year. These are great first steps to. And here's another thing: you don't want to damage your gut, and what damages the gut a lot is eating a lot of seeds. So
Mm.
anything that's a seed, so grains, beans, legumes, obviously soy, that's a legume,
Mhm.
nuts. These things have a lot of compounds that are actually quite inflammatory. So I would, as
Mm.
much as one can, I would curtail that side of things. I wouldn't rely on them as daily staples.
That's I knew about some of those, but you know, it's like, but Christian, I've got like a healthy nut pack here that I have for my snack, like, every day. Got a little bit of chocolate in there, you know. Um,
The chocolate's probably the best part.
it probably is. Well, it's got a high level of cocoa, so it's on that side of it. But
Uh,
no, it's really good. And now I understand several things that my wife's been doing for years that maybe I didn't quite understand. Like, oh, you're
like
mowing
what?
the yard. Okay, there we go. Well, she'll chop up the garlic, mix it with, got the oregano oil. She'll chop up the garlic.
Nice.
I mean,
She does that, yeah?
oh yeah, the
Oh,
the
that's
gut
nice.
gut health in the area of, and she's gonna love listening to this, but the area around gut health is like a big passion for hers, and she's helped some friends and just understanding it.
Awesome.
And I took a different turn in kind of my uh, interest in it, and I do want to have a question coming back to it, but I'm gonna take a moment to do a small plug on why you don't need to wait for something to happen before you have to go to the mechanic. And with gut health and the gastrointestinal system, it is all system, just like your car. Like, we're big, gooey machines. Hopefully not gooey. Hopefully we're getting some push-ups in, and we're less gooey. But we're big machines. So my brother passed away at a young age at 33. This is we're coming on a year actually now. But the initial thing that he had was colon cancer.
Mm.
Now, it's still kind of a question as to how and why. He was so young. He's one of the younger guys that do it. Um, but it did turn me on to a lot of different perspective of the gut health piece. So my plug is this. I don't think I've ever done this, but you know, Christian, I'm gonna be 40 this summer, and it's time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm gonna. This is not always a fun topic, but colonoscopy. Look, you get there, and when it's time to go get checked, go get checked because A, it's the best nap you'll probably ever have. B, it's important to you just don't wanna mess with that stuff. I saw it. You don't wanna play with it. So go get checked. That's my plug. But the gut health piece is where it's preventative maintenance. It's just taking care of ourselves, but we need to understand how, and we need to understand why. And I really like your analogy on how it works. It's like, look, you've got things, it's we're nature. We are nature.
Mhm.
things grow in us. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Some of them are overgrown our yard, like some of these guys that are looking at the mix of feed and fertilizer and everything for their luscious yards that they're cutting with scissors. Hey, you know who you
Mm,
are. I know I know you're listening. You know who you are. I'm calling you. Um, are we doing the same thing for ourselves? So this thing's really interesting, and we started with how it impacts those within the autism spectrum, but really like how we can proactively go do stuff before we don't. So here's my question. I can be
mm,
long-winded too, but here's my question. Sticking with the car reference, I can go to a mechanic or we get a computer that's like, ding, here's a light. Um, which it's funny you said you didn't put the tape over it because I literally had somebody come up to me with our work vehicle the other day, and there's always this light for the TPMS sensor for the tires. It's always on, always.
mm.
And that's because somebody replaced the wheels and the tires with ones that didn't have TPMS sensors in 'em. So it's always on. But he came over, he's like, "I solved your problem." I was like, "What did you do?" He's like, "I put tape over it." I'm like, "Oh, perfect. Thank you for
Really, you
that."
should be a doctor, bro. Go be a
Yeah,
doctor.
nailed it. Yeah, it's the problem's gone. But there's no diagnostic sensor per se or light that comes on. It's like, "Bing, you got a problem," until, maybe later. So, what is there anything that you're aware of that, is kinda like a, "Hey, where am I?" "How can I check on where I am?" Like, what are some of those things that you've seen, if anything?
Yeah, it's so funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's interesting. Today, one of my clients, they want to with her partner, they would like to start trying for to get pregnant. And I asked her a few weeks ago during the session, is he on any supplements? What is he doing, any health stuff? And she's like, oh no. And actually he's had fatigue for a very long time. And she told me how old he is. He's like 30, and I'm like,
Mm,
that's not normal. And I told you what I was doing when I was turning 30. I was working a full-time job and training Thai boxing and you know going out and stuff like that. And
right.
I was even doing courses and stuff like that. So that's not normal. So then I have this metabolic function questionnaire that clients answer. It's not answers, it's more grading. A 0 if you don't have a issue with a specific thing, let's say headaches.
Mhm,
1 if you had one headache that you remember in the last 5 years, that's a 1. And then 10 if you have a horrendous debilitating headaches every day.
mm,
And that's for like energy, food, your stool, women's hormones, men's sort of hormones. And he had a bunch of 8s, 9s, and 10s where I have clients with a lot of health problems are coming to me and
mhm,
they don't score themselves as high on these things. And these people are actively seeking my help, but it's usually women. So with guys, when they start doing this, oh, I've had this for 10 years. And oh, yeah, I have this limp that's like an old sports injury. I never went to the doctor after. And I had, oh, yeah, headaches. Oh, yeah, I got them all day long. Yeah, yeah, I just take aspirin. And oh, my
mm,
elbow, yeah, it doesn't work. I can only bend. My shoulder doesn't, it half works. I can only lift my arm up to my shoulder.
right.
And
I think a badge
then
of honor.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I actually did, I broke my leg some, I guess 15 years ago.
Mhm,
And as soon as the cast was off, I was walking. That night, I was actually kicking a soccer ball, and then I went to one physiotherapy session. I did 0 physiotherapy,
mm,
and now I suffer that pain 15 years later still.
mm,
And you live and learn, or you live and don't learn. in
right,
some in some of our cases,
right.
myself included, right? So um yeah, so that metabolic function questionnaire. It takes 5 minutes to do, 5-10 minutes. It really helps people just stop and listen, and then like, oh yeah, I am tired by 2 o'clock, 2 p.m. That's not normal because we know we've normalized a lot of things, or we have crutches, so coffee will keep you going all day, and then maybe some wine will calm you down so you can pass out at night, and these
Mhm,
things can really keep it together. But then when you start zeroing in, like, are you sensitive to fragrances, for example? If you are,
mm,
that's a detoxification problem. Do you feel hangry or irritable between meals, that's a blood sugar dysregulation problem. So this is a very, even without lab testing, I can already tell what areas of a person's metabolism needs, special attention, priority attention. So
Mm,
the first thing I would probably say is we need to just be a little bit more honest with ourselves. Is something really not right? If you, let's say, just as an example,
mhm,
if you're having erectile issues,
mhm,
right? That is that's kind of a canary in the coal mine, right? So
mm,
so if you're, or even, let's say, so a lot of guys, they don't have erectile issues.
mhm,
When stimulated, they can, get going and do the job, as it were, but their libido might be shot. So that's also another real great barometer, canary in the coal mine type of barometer for overall
mhm.
uh how robust you are at the moment. So if your libido is a little bit on the low end, that's another one. So that those are really good. I work with some labs. We have some really good lab tests where there's one that's really awesome. It's a little simple urine collection that you collect at home.
Mhm,
The courier comes and picks it up off of you, and we can check if you have candida overgrowth, various bacterial dysbiosis stuff going on in the gut, B vitamin deficiencies. That's a very common one.
mhm,
Um, we can check for various other things like oxalates, which are stuff generally in grains that can be problematic for some people,
mhm, mhm.
neurotransmitter metabolites. So it's an overall metabolic check that can, I mean, almost, no, not one person that we've had this test done on has ever come back with like a no imbalances. It's usually, in the best case scenario, it will be some candida, maybe a B vitamin deficiency, some minor stuff to tweak. But even that alone is worth the price of the test, because imagine catching a candida overgrowth now, as opposed to your immune system gets, perturbed because of an antibiotic, because you get sick, or something, like you have a bad period, a lot of stress, poor diet during that time. So those are ripe conditions for imbalances to really like a crack in a wall. When
Mhm,
there's an earthquake, it's gonna a normal wall wouldn't succumb to the earthquake, but if you have like a crack in the wall and then
mhm.
something perturbs the structure, that could spell disaster. So I love to work with people to not just catch and figure out the stuff bothering you right now, but what could be a potential problem in the future, right? This is again like guys that are
Yeah.
into their cars. They're proactive about. So in my case, there was some little piece that was connected to the alternator that was
Mhm,
killing my batteries. The voltage was jumping too much, and that was kind of deteriorating the quality and life of the battery. So
mhm,
I I drove like that for a little bit over 2 years. So I because I don't care about my car. If I had a similar type of issue with me, let's say I did
yeah,
this test, and like one of the B vitamins was a little bit on the low end, not deficient, but kind of not perfect, not optimal. Well, I'd be buying B vitamins and eating more eggs and eating more liver and eating more meat as a preventative measure, right? So
mhm,
doing little tests like this, that one is a good one. Another one that I really like with especially guys that are sort of more hard charging,
mhm,
um, is the is a comprehensive hormone panel. So we can test your cortisol, your stress hormones, how they rise and fall during the day, and
mm,
your androgens, your testosterone, your estrogens. And this one is really good to help guys see, oh, well, here's the lab work. My libido is not great. I'm not sleeping very well. And then, I'm gaining weight. And then when you see estrogen is high, androgens like testosterone and so on are low,
mm,
cortisol is high, and that immediately they start to figure out, oh, so that's why I'm cranky. That's why I can't sleep. That's why I'm gaining weight. That's why my libido's shot. That's why I can't build muscle in the gym, and that's why I'm fatigued all the time or half the day. And
mm,
then they're like, "Oh, okay, it makes sense." And
yeah,
then they start proactively following the program and taking care of themselves.
mhm. Well, because then you have data that points you where to actually be proactive versus I'm just gonna change the battery over and over and over, but it's the alternator. right?
Yeah.
In that sense, or, in the other sense of going to the gym, I'm just gonna keep doing all these curls, do my routine. Eventually, I'll get through
Yeah.
break through. But the thing
Follow
that's
through.
preventing you from getting there, you're not addressing. So,
Exactly, man.
and,
Exactly.
not just for the car people or, um, I'm gonna go to the business people too, especially those in, like, leadership roles or sales guys or whatever. In modern day tools, the majority of us have used or have currently, um, tools that they break down data way too much now. I mean, there's data analytics on how much one person talked versus the client, right? And so if
Mhm.
that's out of balance, if you're talking more than your client, you need to bring it down, right? 2 years, 1 mouth thing, but it'll
Yeah.
show you that. We have all of these KPIs, we have the OKRs, and we use business data and analytics to then address the components of what streams we go after, what we do in marketing campaigns, where we need to adjust our funnel, yada, yada, yada. Um, we do all these things outside and, like, can get really into it. The bracket's been going on, March Madness. Guys know data among like, out their ears on,
Mm.
people playing. What data do we have on ourselves? Now, I'm gonna just step out and say that, I'll use myself as the lamb here, that sometimes the health conversation can be scarier than than others. It's easy to talk about basketball, it's easy to talk about car stuff, it's easy to talk about business stuff because, it's kinda outside and I can impact that. The internal thing is different, and so what if something is wrong? Well, I don't necessarily know if I wanna know, or whatever that conversation might be that you're having with. If something's wrong, hopefully you wanna know because we're all dads, we're here so that we can be here for ourselves, our wives, our kids, and our community, and, and the best version that we can be mentally and physically. And it's a hard conversation to have, but, the last piece I'll have in my small, um, soapbox moment here is that if you've ever heard your wife talking about, like, gut health and stuff like that, and you wanna, like, gain her interest, learn about some gut health, start talking about it,
Mm.
and, like, eat some garlic with her or do something like that, uh, that, that's gonna show not only it's a win-win because it shows your
Yeah.
interest in something she's been talking about, but then you're also getting better, and next thing you know, there's a you know, you could start seeing those results, you can feel those results. It's a big
Yeah.
difference if you're always tired and then
But
you're
bro,
more energy. So anyway,
I know
thanks
you
for
were
that.
gonna take it another direction, but while you're on this topic with the wife, I
Mhm.
think I might this might be of interest to guys and yourself. A
Yeah.
great way to sort of show interest in your wife and her health and to actually help her improve her health is get the conversation going about potentially always talk to your doctor, all that stuff, not medical advice, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. But about ask her, have you thought about a progesterone supplement? Did you ever and just see what she says, right? Because here's the thing, right? We live in an environment where there's a lot of xenoestrogens, phytoestrogens, so toxins like plasticizers,
Mhm.
things in soy, flax seeds, and plant foods are estrogenic, and women already have a burden of it, too much estrogen, and a lot of this estrogen is what drives that PMS, uh, pre premenstrual syndrome
Mhm.
type stuff, right? So I've
Mhm.
noticed it in my wife. I've actually gathered data, so to speak, and I've been
Mhm.
more very attentive around when does the mood change in the month, what precedes it, da 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 da. Da. So
Mhm.
this progesterone supplement for a lot of women is gonna do wonders in terms of balancing their estrogen and progesterone, and it also balances, or rather it ameliorates the negative effects of cortisol, the big stress hormone, right, that everybody knows about. So
Mhm.
if you're thinking of how to score points with the wife, this is if you can there's one on iherb.com called Organic Excellence. You want to get an organic product, something as clean as possible.
Mhm.
Organic Excellence, bioidentical progesterone. It has to be bioidentical, right? Not this synthetic garbage that they're selling as progesterone.
It's
Um,
bioidentical, just meaning that it's identical to the way
yeah,
that our systems are built, not
yeah,
synthetic
not something
oil.
synthetic, like because a lot of these things have a lot of very negative effects. Actually,
Mm,
the chemical producing companies produce. Let's just tiptoe around those terms, right? For
mhm,
the algorithm.
mhm,
Um, Uh, so that's just a little thing. So that can actually make your own life a little bit better if you help your wife improve her hormonal balance. Obviously, she will be less triggered by our shenanigans because I've noticed, bro, the same joke or the same type of joke,
uh-huh.
if it's the right time of the month, my wife will laugh her ass off, spit her soup out in my face, and then if it's like two weeks later, it's like, "That's not funny," and just like kind of, "Well, what about all the women that did it?" Something like that, you know?
Right.
So it really the context, the hormonal context inside of a person greatly shapes how they react to a stimulus. For or just to give an example, if
Yeah,
I am hungry, haven't eaten all day, I'm gonna be on edge because my stress hormones are high. And you can say the nicest thing in the world, like, Shut up, get out of my face," right? For example,
sure.
that's like if you're really hungry. So it's very similar with a woman. If her estrogen is high, her cortisol will also be high, and then in that context, you could bring her home flowers. Like, I don't like roses, I like daisies, something like that. So
Right.
if we can do this, I think this is a great way to you're not just investing in your family's health, which is the number one investment. You're investing in your partner. She sees you
Mhm,
doing a caring thing, but it can also prompt you to then, okay, what else can we, if this did so many wonders, what else could we do? Maybe, let's maybe get B vitamins. Maybe let's calcium. That's another big one. Women are super predisposed to osteoporosis. Most women don't eat enough dairy just to even meet the RDA of calcium. So if you can
mhm,
figure out get a calcium and magnesium supplement, the magnesium is also good for you. It's good for everything. And then
mhm,
that's a great way. Oh, but then it's like, oh, we're spending these, $100 on these supplements now. We can't eat this crap. Let's not order out. Let's go buy some organic meat and make our own sort of stir fry. So it's a
mhm,
great foot in the door, getting a supplement or two. It's a great foot in the door to start being a little bit more mindful. And it's not nothing that you have to force yourself to do. It's take it as far as you like. But a lot of people, they're like, well, I've got all this positive momentum. I'm just gonna keep building on that. And then, some people 2, 3 years later, they're like, oh yeah, now I'm a health coach now or something. So
right. Well, that's a great call. It gets you down a path that maybe builds some momentum, and that's, it's a path to health and, um, having the energy and living life and loving what we're doing. Like, that's
yeah,
and it can help with that, and it's kind of bummer to always feel sick and tired and all
yeah.
those things, you know? Y you do you in that case, but I don't recommend it. So Christian, great tips. I love the how like, some the specifics that we can look into, and, the conversations always go so quick on these, but so
Yeah.
if guys wanna go check out, and I have about 30% of my audience as of, like, right now is, female as well, so,
Nice.
I know you're gonna probably get some visitors to, come check this out. So where can I send them to so they can visit?
Yeah, my website is just my full name.com, christianyordanov.com. That has everything there. It's generally I mostly work with women or
Mhm,
woman or mother child pairs, but the last year and a half I was on some podcasts that some cool people running. I've actually had more guys sign up as clients, and actually I have a few dads with helping their kids specifically, and
mhm,
a few guys obviously with their own health stuff. So that's such a it's so refreshing to see that doing things like we're doing now actually work. Occasionally, people will reach out. They're like, "Yeah, hell yeah, my wife's been doing this thing for X number of years, and I haven't. I'm gonna start doing this as well." And then I have one guy, he's in his 60s, man. He has not been sick all winter. His
nice.
entire office were coughing up their lungs, getting double, triple, whatever, because they have a lot of industrial. It's a company where they have a lot of toxic exposure from the work they do, so a
Mm,
lot of
mhm,
compromised system. And this guy was sick every month prior to starting to work with me over a few months. had a lot of health problems. They even wanted to take him to the emergency room one day. They thought he had sepsis and was about to die,
Oof.
and he hasn't been sick all winter, and he's in his 60s. So this is the kind of thing you can do. So it's never too late. I just want to leave the listeners with a positive thing. What you said earlier was very true. A lot of the time you don't want to know. It's like, oh god, I don't want to look under the hood. But here's the thing: if you do look under the hood, even if it's something that's been occurring or developing over like 2 3 decades, generally it takes a lot less time, if it's possible, to reverse it fully. In some cases it is, but to get to that optimal stage that's possible, sometimes there's only so much you can do because you're older, entropy, etc. um but that can take, a few months, a year. So it's better to start being proactive now, because in a year's time you'll be like, oh my god, I feel so much better, and then 10 20 years down the line you'll be like, damn, I'm so glad that fateful day I said, you know what, I'm gonna go get some lab markers and just start there and figure out, or I'm gonna go get a couple of supplements, a multivitamin, who cares, something. Just
Yeah.
start something, and then it will build. You'll find podcasts that deal with this, and it will build on from there, and then magical things will happen.
I love it. And you're not the only one that's doing it, guys. You're not the only one thinking about it. And when this popped in my head and makes me want to turn my hat like that. And I'm like, you know, my kids are only 9 down to 3, but I was on the baseball field the other day and seeing, grandpa throwing with the kids. And we're thinking about our current family. I wanna be around for all that too, and I wanna be
Yeah, man.
throwing a baseball, and I wanna be honestly, I wanna be skiing, all those things, and that starts today. If
And
we
you
have
want to keep
goals.
that gorgeous hair.
Oh, thank you.
Bro, I cannot believe you're putting that under a hat. You're
Oh, yeah.
That is
Well, for
a
th
sin to be hiding that under a hat.
for those
Cap.
that are listening, maybe you'll see the video, but yeah, I got a haircut recently too. I mean, it can it can get
That is
pretty full.
sacrilege to hide that under a cap, bro, that gorgeous hair.
I'll tell you what it is, Christian, I'll be real with you. The dog woke up at least 2 times that I can remember last night. The littlest one rolled in, and then this morning, I was like, "You know what? It's a hat day. I'm throwing a hat on, I know I got coming up. It's gonna get, you know, dirty and sweaty and, not this podcast. That's not the one. But, yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll
we
just
never got to talk about the sleep stuff, but maybe,
part 2.
yeah, yeah, or when you come on my show, we
There
can
we go.
talk about it, and we can clip it and send it on socials or whatever.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, Christian, I appreciate you, jumping on here with me, man. It was fun. Way too
Thank you,
fast,
Zach.
but I've got some takeaways. I'm gonna go eat some garlic and, it gets me back on that gut health train. It's a great reminder, and a great topic. It really is a great topic. We haven't talked about it yet in this podcast, so, I appreciate everything you're doing and putting the time into it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, guys and girls, if you've listened up to this point, I know you're sitting there thinking about what you're gonna go do. But the number one thing that I hope you go do is make a plan for yourself on doing an audit. Now I'm going to add something to this audit because we recently talked about time, like auditing our time, right? I don't have enough time. We all have the same amount of time. If we audit our time and see where we really are, we can find the things that we can need to maybe cut and or add. Now it might be time for that health audit. Taking a look at where are we? What are some things that I feel? Let's be real with ourselves because at the end of the day, we're looking at where we are so that then we can go get to where we want to be. It sounds like Christian's got some tools that you can go check out as well. ChristianYordanov.com. I'll include it in all the places, like show notes and on the website and all those things. Go take a look, check it out. The gut health thing is real. Um, but as you're going through the story, I want you guys to be around for a long time. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be out there with the energy that's just setting the example for everyone else. I know you probably do too. That's why you listen to this thing. And so let's do it. Let's all get it together. Let me know what you find as you're going through it as well. And if you heard something that you think would resonate with somebody you know, please share it with them. That's why we do this thing. Connect with other people. We share it with people we know. That also tells them, oh, this person's actually thinking about me. Kind of a weird thing to think about me, but you know what? I appreciate you thought about me and you reached out. That's what it is. We have those conversations. We build community. So, guys, love you. Really enjoy connecting with people like Christian on this podcast, and I hope that you have taken something away that you can apply in your life and your journey to becoming the skilled dad. We'll see you soon.